Everyone, it's Miss Celeste. I am your instructor for ECE 102. We are getting into week 2, part 6 of our journey here in our course. I hope last week was very helpful and resourceful for you. I hope these videos overall are helpful to your learning and just kind of diving deep into our course objectives specifically. And then just sharing some input during our live sessions. So again, I would encourage you to take some notes and just elaborate more if you wish during our live sessions. Because again, I do like to just kind of hear your input and learn from you. And then after our live session, you will, if you would like, write a reflection, which is really helpful just for me and for you, just to kind of reflect on what you learned and just so I can better reflect too on some areas that I can dive more into, etc. So it's a great tool for you and I. So I hope you take the time to do that. If you do, I will apply some extra credit points for you to apply wherever needed. So before we get started though, with our video here, I am just going to kind of go into some of our assignments. So just making sure that you are reading and watching the videos like this one, and just kind of diving into some understanding of this week's points and purpose. So during the discussion this week, we're really going to, dive into incorporating ways to achieve high order thinkers and how you do that, lesson plan use and design, changes you would apply if you could change, currently what you're doing, what I mean by that. And also just kind of, giving me more understanding of the curriculum and lesson plan or questions that you still have in those areas. And that's all what you're going to discuss in your discussion of thread this week, which is due Wednesday. Replies are due Saturday. So I really, want you to reply to your peers on different days, just to kind of keep that conversation going, ask questions, use examples. The more information that you use will definitely benefit you in your discussion. Not just overall in your understanding and getting some creative ideas, but also in your points. And then moving to journal, we are going to just kind of dive into observation, document, and assessment portion of curriculum. So you will need to, for your assignment specifically, create a curriculum. And I do have like a sample there that you use. So again, if you need any more clarity on expectations, please visit Canvas week 2, and then just go specifically under each assignment, and it will then elaborate on what the expectation is. If you need more clarity, that is great and fine. Just please reach out before the assignment is due, so then I can support you and give you some more help if needed, because that's what I'm here. All right, so this week we are going to focus on inclusion. So finding creative ways to support an inclusive classroom. So some of us have used this word before, heard this word before, and maybe not so much. So inclusion means a lot of different, perspectives. So it's really, incorporating, a community aspect, support, diversity, acceptance, feeling valued, etc. So successful inclusion education happens primarily through accepting, understanding, and attending to students' differences and diversity, which can include physical, cognitive, academic, social, and emotional. This is not to say that students never need to spend time out of their regular education classes. because sometimes, they do need for a particular purpose. So for instance, speech and language, occupational therapy, etc. But the goal is this should be the exception. So we're really trying to, really build upon their skills, and again, in the cognitive, academic, social, and emotional aspects of their learning. The learning environment definitely should be, presented in so many ways. So this is another big one which promotes inclusion for all in your classroom. So we all need a calm, environment in order, to learn. But creating a calm environment in class is a tricky thing to master. So ways that we can definitely encourage, the calmness is definitely our energy and what we bring to the classroom. So having a really well prepared environment, setting up the areas, feeling that you're ready, and all the materials there, and everything's just kind of good to go. That also is a sense of, I'm ready. A little, calmness. Maybe applying some really beautiful classical music in the background. Again, depends on the environment. Can kind of ease the calmness. Really having more like an open doors type policy where parents feel that they can enter and it's welcomed and it's loving. But again, it all goes to your energy as a teacher. So you definitely can be the leader of this calmness that is created in the classroom. Ensure, you clearly define when, there's group discussions or working is required and acceptable, and when it's not. So being very clear of what is expected, what's happening, when it's happening, what's required, etc. Obviously, when you're talking to a very young group of children, less is always better, right? Because the more lengthy you conversate with them, the less that they're really focusing on what's happening. So again, I would then just lead by example. Use minimal words, be specific, but yet lead by example. So if I'm asking everybody to now come to small group or circle time, I then in the classroom would play music. And that was their indication that it was circle time. So then they would independently clean up, and then we would make our way gradually to circle time. So there doesn't always have to be words exchanged. It definitely can. There's different ways that we can incorporate transitions and kind of identifying the expectation, per se. Another is just a calm environment is inclusive for many of your children, regardless of whether they have a special need for it or not. So creating that calm environment is for everybody. And that also supports a child's learning, concentration, and just really, getting them to feel comfortable and welcomed in the environment for all children. Teacher strategies could include, define clear minimum standards for behavior. So being very consistent with especially the behavior and when it happens. Enforce those standards consistently. So just making sure they're accountable, making sure that we are following through on our words with action. Dealing with low-level disruption in a sensitive way. So what this means is just really not interrupting the work cycle, as I would call it. So if a child is concentrating, focusing on something, it's important that we don't have distractions around that. So having loud voices or maybe helping a child with a concern, I then would kind of step a little further away. So I'm being mindful of everyone around me and not necessarily handling that challenge right then and there in that specific, yes, in the moment, but in that part of the classroom is what I'm trying to say. So create opportunities to listen to all children is very important, because children want to be heard, and they have to also learn how to communicate their needs. So in order to learn to practice that, we have to be able to listen to them. And many other ways on this list. You're more than welcome to kind of jot these ideas down if you wish. Another one I just want to point out is just create a calm, purposeful learning environment. So just making sure that everything in your classroom has a purpose, and just kind of reflecting on that daily, weekly, moving out material that maybe isn't being used, or maybe the children aren't yet ready for. Again, that goes to observation and making sure that we're consistently doing that so we keep the environment calm and purposeful. And then also just letting children choose how to show you what they have learned. So not every child's going to perform this task the same way, right? And that's okay. So just being flexible and mindful of again, going back to the observation, and that's really how I better understand if a child has mastered a skill or not. Of course, you have those children who want to call you over and say, "Come on, come sit down, and I want to show you something," and that is completely fine. But not every child is going to show you in that form, and then you're able to understand, do they know it, do they not? So just being flexible on how that delivery is kind of played out and understood. And also don't compare the progress of one child to another. Every child's different. Not every child's going to perform the same way. Not every child's going to master a skill at the same time. And just allowing that individual approach and focus and learning process to blossom as they learn, because it will happen. Just let them do it at their pace, so it isn't a calm, non-interruption type, a process. So I definitely encourage that. So goals for, to improve our classroom. So just a few goals that you could definitely include. For an example, your first weeks of school. So every year, again, depending on your environment, you may have the same children, you may have a set of new children, but it's really important to set up the environment so we can create that inclusive, environment. So goals could be improved classroom setup. So really self-reflect. Is this working? Did it work last year? Can I add more of this or that? Do I need more materials? And which then would need you to ask some support from your leadership. Just kind of, so again, so you have everything ready, prepared, to kind of have that sense of calmness, because you have everything too. Define roles of assistance. So just being super clear of what your roles are in the classroom. So if you have co-teachers, assistant teachers, etc., it's important that you conversate, collaborate, communicate well. But in order to do that, we have to do that often. And I understand, or I hear this a lot, that we don't have a lot of time to do that. So then that takes me to your leadership and kindly asking for that time to be put into the schedule, because in order for a classroom to function well, and for children to learn in a calm, prepared environment, we have to spend the time with our team to conversate about all different areas of the classroom, expectations, understandings, misunderstandings, etc., in order for us to fully understand our role in the classroom, because we all play an important role. But unfortunately, at times, teachers may need a little bit more clarity on certain areas. So don't ignore them. Have the conversations, have them often. If you feel like after some reflecting, there's just some areas that need a little bit of this or that, it's okay to express that, but it's also how you express it. I would also encourage sharing some positive as well, because I feel like we also need to hear that, because there's a lot of positive that goes on every day, but we spend so much time talking about the not, so positive. So I would just mesh a little bit of both together when you're having these conversations, because then the information will just come across so much different. So that's something I would recommend. So prevent behavior issues. So in order to do that, again, being clear with the expectation, making sure that you guys have a process within your classroom on how you deal with behavior concerns. If that's, for an example, in my classroom, I had a peace area. That's what we called it. And it was an area where children went to take a break, have a conversation with the friend that they're having the disagreement on. And so it was just an area for them to kind of reset. So again, however you guys do it in your classroom or procedures within your school as a whole is something that I would consistently make sure that we are all following the same process consistently. Because once we kind of veer off the consistency, that's when children don't fully follow the process. So again, teachers, everyone in the classroom, even parents, everyone has to be on the same page. So this is meaning having conversations often, making sure that you're communicating openly with parents of what's happening. I still would also always add positive accomplishments and not always just so negative. So you build that positive rapport and relationship with parents. So when you do have to have those not so great conversations, they just again come across different, and that also goes along with your teaching team. And then observe students with their peers. So seeing how they interact with others, seeing how they problem solve, seeing how they communicate, seeing how they collaborate is a really important part of the learning process. So when we see children and we don't maybe see them exercising certain skills, then we know where to support them and we know where to kind of start. So observation is a must inside, outside of the classroom, because that is our tool to find what we can do to support them. And here's just a quick video on an inclusive ECE program that I thought was very meaningful. So let's watch.
Classrooms are changing. Students with disabilities are educated in inclusive classroom settings.
I don't know what my classroom would be like without Aiden. I do everything I can to help each student grow as an individual and be a part of a learning community. Ava loves to draw, so we use art to help her express herself. And Aiden might take a little longer on a math problem or need some extra help with his reading, but he is one of the most intriguing kids. He's really into rockets. Whenever we read a book about outer space, I know I have his full attention.
The Inclusive Early Childhood Program is among the first of its kind in Ohio. The program blends the best practices from early childhood education with special education. Graduates of the program will earn 2 early childhood teaching licenses, 1 in general education and 1 in special education. Teachers from Bowling Green State University's Inclusive Early Childhood Program will be prepared to meet the growing needs of educating young children with and without disabilities in classrooms.
I'm glad I have the tools I need to work with students like Aiden. It's been awesome to play an important role in unlocking every student's potential.
Join BGSU's Inclusive Early Childhood Program.
So yeah, so this video, I really just wanted you to see the classroom setting and how each child is different and how we can, really support their learning in so many different ways, and it's okay. So I'll move on to, sorry about that. And lastly, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been so fun learning with you this week. I hope you had fun looking into an inclusive classroom and having some strategies on how you can apply that in your classroom. If you have any questions specifically, please reach out. I'm here to support you. Our next stop would be part 7 of week 2. So see you then. Bye.